They don't expect you to leave. Not really, because they've trained you bit by bit to doubt your worth, question your memory, and silence your instincts. They watched you give and give and give, until the very idea of walking away felt like betrayal. Not betrayal of them, but betrayal of yourself. Because somewhere along the line you learned to tie your value to their validation. You didn't even notice the switch. That's how subtle it was, how quiet. But then, something shifted. It wasn't a dramatic goodbye or a loud confrontation. It was a whisper inside you, one you hadn't heard in a long time, maybe ever. A soft, almost frightened voice that simply said, "This isn't love." And that's the moment everything changed. Not outside, but inside. This video is for the moment after that moment. For when you've turned your back and walked away, not to punish, not to hurt, not to prove, but to reclaim something that was never theirs to take, you. We're going to step into the mind of the narcissist, not to psychoanalyze or excuse, but to show you the truth you never saw. What really happens when you leave. What storms start to brew behind the mask. And why your silence, your peace, your absence is the one thing they can't control. Not everyone will understand this, but if you've ever loved someone who made you feel like your heart was a liability, you already know what I'm talking about. This isn't just about narcissists, it's about you. The you who had to break your own heart to save your soul. The you who kept choosing someone who never truly chose you. The you who stayed too long, believed too hard, gave too much, and finally, said no more. So stay with me, not because you need answers. You already have them. Stay because this is your mirror, your quiet confirmation that what you did the walking away was not weakness, it was power. And if no one has told you that today, let me be the first. If you're new here, or if your heart needs this kind of truth on a regular basis, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Not because it helps the algorithm, but because it helps you. These aren't just videos, they're reminders. And some reminders are lifelines. Breathe. You're safe now. They don't panic right away. At first, when you walk away, the narcissist might seem calm, detached, as if your absence is nothing but a mild inconvenience, like losing a sock in the laundry. That's the mask. It has to stay intact. Their image depends on it, because if they react too quickly, it means you mattered more than they let on, and that would expose the truth they fear most, that they never had real power over you. Only the illusion of it. But the moment you're out of reach, a different storm begins inside them. Quiet at first, a flicker of discomfort, a twitch in their carefully composed world. They expected you to come back. They expected your guilt to bring you crawling. When you don't, the panic starts to whisper. They don't miss you, not in the way you missed them. They miss the control, the attention, the certainty that someone out there was always orbiting them, waiting for scraps of affection that came only on their terms. Your silence? That's a threat, because narcissists feed on reaction. Your anger, your pain, your confusion, it was all part of the game. As long as you were emotionally tangled up with them, they had a grip. But now, you're quiet, and in that silence, they start to unravel. This is where the mask begins to crack, not in public, but in private. In the places no one sees. Their phone doesn't light up with your name. Their inbox stays empty, and slowly, their sense of power starts to collapse. They might tell themselves stories. You'll regret it. You're weak. You need me more than I need you. But these stories echo in an empty room now. There's no one left to hear them. And without your presence reflecting back their inflated self-image, they're forced to confront what's underneath. Emptiness. See, you were never dealing with someone whole. You were dealing with someone who needed you to patch the holes in their identity. Your love wasn't received, it was consumed. Like oxygen. And now that you've left, they're gasping. But pride won't let them show it. So instead, they reach for familiar weapons. They might try to provoke you. A vague post online. A rumor. A message that sounds just caring enough to confuse you. Or worse, one that sounds like accountability. Like change. I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe I didn't treat you the way you deserved, but make no mistake, this isn't healing. It's hunting. They're testing the waters, seeing if they still have access, if they can pull one more ounce of attention from you, because attention, even in anger, is proof they still matter in your world. This is why your silence is so loud. It denies them the one thing they crave more than love, relevance. And as they sit in that void you left behind, something else begins to take root. Rage. Not the kind that shows up in broken dishes or raised voices. The colder kind. The kind that plots. That waits. That searches for a new source to feed from. But here's the part they didn't expect. You're not broken anymore. You're building. Quietly. Stronger. Wiser. Your eyes have adjusted to the truth now, and you can't unsee it. You've learned how to hold yourself, how to sit with the ache without running back to the fire that burned you. And that terrifies them, because deep down, they know once someone wakes up to their own worth, they never beg for breadcrumbs again. They don't know how to grieve you, not in the way someone grieves a real loss. Because grief requires depth, accountability, the ability to sit with pain without needing to assign blame. But narcissists don't grieve. They scramble. You were a mirror, one that reflected their charm, their worth, their specialness. As long as you were around, your love was proof that they were still desirable, still powerful, still enough. But now that mirror is gone and all they're left with is their own fractured reflection, one they don't know how to face, so they reach, desperately, for replacements. Someone new, someone who doesn't know yet, someone who will look at them with the same awe you once did. This is what many mistake for moving on. It isn't, it's survival, because without an emotional supply, they begin to deteriorate. Not visibly, not in a way the world would notice, but internally. Quiet self-loathing, masked by forced confidence. The kind of spiral that feels like being trapped in a house of mirrors with no real image left to believe in. But there's something different this time. You see, when they've cycled through people in the past, they could always go back to someone who still cared. Someone who never fully walked away. Someone still waiting for the apology, the closure, the redemption arc. Not with you, because you didn't just leave, you healed. And healing doesn't just mean cutting ties. It means seeing clearly. It means letting go of the fantasy. It means not answering when they call from the same number that once held your lifeline. It means understanding that their change, if it ever comes, isn't yours to wait for or witness. That kind of healing, it's rare. And for the narcissist, it's maddening, because it means the story is over and they didn't get to write the ending. They don't get to be the one who comes back stronger, more evolved, with a shiny new mask and an apology rehearsed for effect. They don't get to play the hero in a story where they were always the villain. And most of all, they don't get access to the new you. That's the deepest wound for them. Not that you're gone, but that you're free. They can't stand the thought that someone else might see the beauty in you they only saw as something to use. That someone else might hold your softness without weaponizing it. That someone else might love you in a way that doesn't leave you questioning your own reality. So they watch, sometimes quietly, sometimes through mutual friends, sometimes through fake accounts or messages wrapped in concern. Always trying to gauge, are you still within reach? And you, maybe for the first time in a long time, aren't. You're not performing pain for their comfort anymore. You're not explaining your worth to someone committed to misunderstanding it. You're not editing yourself just to avoid another emotional minefield. You're just living, breathing deeper, smiling softer, trusting slower but still open, still hopeful, still here. And that, more than anything, is what they can't understand. Because to them, love was always a transaction. A strategy, a mirror. But to you, love is now something else entirely. They want closure, but only if they get to control it. Only if they get the last word. Only if they can shape how the story ends in their favor. They want to be the one who leaves you feeling like the problem. Like the one who was too emotional, too demanding, too much. And if they can't do that with words, they'll try to do it with silence. Indifference. Pretending you never mattered. But here's the secret. Indifference is just another costume. And behind it, they're unraveling. Because someone like you, someone who stayed, someone who loved through the damage, someone who tried even when it hurt you, don't come around often. You were their shelter, and they turned it into a storm. You were the softness they secretly wished they could feel but never learned how to honor. And now, you're gone. That space you left, it haunts them. Not because they miss your smile or your laugh in a pure way, but because you're no longer a reflection of their importance. You were supposed to stay. They made sure of it. They made you question everything but them, made you feel that leaving would mean failure. But you left anyway, and now, something terrifying starts to rise inside them. The realization that maybe, just maybe, it was them. Not in a deep, soul-searching way. Not the kind of realization that leads to change. This is more shallow, more panicked. Like a child breaking a toy and suddenly wishing they hadn't. Not because they loved the toy, but because now they don't have it. This is where they might circle back. Not with real remorse, but with something that looks like it. A breadcrumb, a flicker of kindness, a memory dangled in front of you, designed to make you question your own healing. They'll say things like, "I've never felt this way about anyone," or "You brought out a side of me no one else ever could." And in that moment, your heart might ache. You might wonder if this is the redemption you waited for, the softness you always knew they had, the love you tried so hard to uncover. But breathe, Because love without respect isn't love. And real change doesn't need to be announced, it shows up consistently, quietly, without needing to convince. What they're offering isn't healing. It's a hook, a way back into the cage you already broke out of. They're not coming back for you, they're coming back for your reflection, and if you hand it over, they'll drain it again. Not because they're evil, but because they don't know how to love without taking, without twisting, without needing you to stay small so they can feel big. So you stay gone, even when it hurts, even when the loneliness whispers lies, even when the familiar ache feels easier than the uncertainty of peace. Because you've seen the cycle now. You've tasted your own freedom. And once you've tasted that kind of freedom, even the most toxic comfort starts to lose its flavor. This is the part they never planned for. They planned for your silence to be temporary, for your boundaries to soften, for your strength to waver. But instead you grew. You're no longer just surviving without them. You're becoming someone without them. You're not just healing, you're evolving. You no longer look back with longing. You look back with clarity. You see the manipulation for what it was. You recognize how many times you twisted yourself to fit their moods, their silence, their shifting stories. And you no longer blame yourself for that. Because when you were in it, you were surviving, loving as best as you knew how, giving as deeply as your heart could stretch. But now you understand love shouldn't cost you yourself. And what they called love wasn't. It was control, masked as connection. It was approval, given on a leash. It was intimacy, wrapped in fear. Fear that if you showed too much of your truth, they'd punish you with distance. That if you asked for more, they'd call you needy. That if you got too close, they'd pull away just far enough to keep you chasing. But you don't chase anymore. That's the part they never prepared for. You see, narcissists don't fear rejection, they fear irrelevance. And when you stopped showing up, stopped checking in, stopped asking if they were okay while you were falling apart, that's when their fear came to life. Because if you can survive without them, then maybe they were never as necessary as they believed. You stopped living in their emotional shadow. You stepped into the light of your own truth. And that light, it doesn't flicker anymore every time they walk in the room. You stopped apologizing for the way you love. Stopped shrinking in rooms just to make someone else feel bigger. Stopped believing that intensity meant intimacy. You don't need chaos to feel alive now. You don't confuse longing with loyalty. You've learned that real love feels safe in your chest, not heavy on your shoulders. And that lesson, it changed you, not all at once. Healing never does. It was slow, painful. Some days, it felt like dragging your heart through glass just to remember who you were before they rewrote your story. But you did it. You rewrote it again, word by word, breath by breath. And now, they can feel it, not because you're flaunting your growth, not because you posted some carefully crafted quote about inner peace and moving on, but because your silence has changed frequency. It no longer says, "I'm hurt." It says, "I've outgrown this." That's what haunts them. They can't reach you, not really. Because even if they text, even if they beg, even if they show up with flowers and tears and trembling voices, you're not theirs to reach anymore. You belong to yourself now. And the person they once broke is the same person who rose from that breaking, stronger than they ever expected. You didn't just walk away. You reclaimed everything they tried to erase. You see them now not as the godlike figure you once placed on a pedestal, not as the emotionally broken child you tried to save, but as they are. Just a person, deeply insecure, shallow in connection, skilled at pretending, empty behind the mask. And this vision, it sets you free. Because the spell is broken, that magnetic pull, the one that made you second-guess your instincts, question your memory, explain away your hurt, it's gone. You no longer need their chaos to feel alive. You no longer crave their praise to feel seen. You no longer mistake their return for redemption. You understand now. Some people don't come back to make things right. They come back to make things familiar again, to pull you back into the rhythm where you doubt yourself. And they don't have to, but you're dancing to a new rhythm now. Your peace is no longer a quiet corner in a storm, it's the whole sky. And they can't live in it, because your sky doesn't shrink for anyone. Not anymore. And while they may try through charm, guilt, tears, silence, whatever tool they think still works, they won't find the old version of you. The one who waited by the phone. The one who cried over mixed signals. The one who called almost love enough. That version of you, gone. Replaced by someone who now understands you were never hard to love. You were just loving someone who didn't know how to receive it without twisting it into something useful for them. That wasn't your fault. Let that sink in. Their inability to love fully, to stay consistent, to be honest, that was never your failure to fix. It was their unwillingness to grow. And still you loved. God, did you love? You forgave when it wasn't earned. You held space when yours was shrinking. You stayed when every part of your body screamed to go. But now, you've finally done the bravest thing of all. You've left, not just physically, but emotionally, energetically, spiritually. You've unplugged from the version of love that hurt more than it healed. You've walked through the fire and come out carrying your own heart, held in your own hands. You don't hate them. That's the wildest part, isn't it? You don't need to. Because hate still ties you to someone, still keeps you dancing on their stage. But you've exited the theater, quietly, gracefully, with your soul intact. And them, they'll keep searching for someone who reflects them, who adores without limits, who stays without boundaries. But they'll never find you again, because what you gave wasn't just love, it was the kind of soul-deep, unconditional, breath-held kind of love that most people spend their whole lives searching for. And they lost it, not because you were too much, but because they were never enough to hold it with care. You didn't just survive them, you outgrew them, not out of spite, not to prove anything, but because something inside you, quiet and fierce, decided, this is not where my story ends. You were never meant to stay small just to make someone else comfortable. You were never meant to dim your light just because someone else couldn't bear their own shadows. You were meant to grow wild, to love boldly, to be whole. And now that you are, they no longer have a script for that. They don't know what to do with the version of you who doesn't flinch when they go silent, who doesn't apologize for asking for more, who doesn't spin in circles trying to decode mixed signals and cold affection, who no longer worships crumbs, hoping they might turn into a meal. They don't recognize you because for the first time, you're not orbiting their needs. You're rooted in your own. You trust your gut now. You follow the pull of peace over the pull of drama. You understand that your softness is not weakness, it's wisdom. And you no longer give that softness to people who treat it like a weapon. This is your freedom. Not a loud, triumphant scream, but a quiet exhale. The kind that says, I made it through. The kind that says, I am enough, even if no one claps for me. You stopped asking why they couldn't love you right, and you started asking how you could love yourself better. That was the turning point. Because healing isn't about becoming untouchable. It's about becoming real again. Letting your heart beat without fear. Letting your tears fall without shame. Letting someone in someday not because you need them to complete you, but because they feel like home, not a test. And when that day comes, and it will, you'll look back on this and understand you weren't broken, you were awakening. And sometimes, awakening looks like loneliness, like grief, like silence, like sitting in the dark with no promise that the light will return. But it always does. And when it does, it doesn't look like them. It looks like you, steady, whole, at peace. So if you're listening to this right now and wondering if they're hurting without you, the answer is yes. But that's not the point. The point is you're no longer hurting for them. You've reclaimed your story, you've rewritten your worth, and you finally remembered who you were before the pain taught you to forget. Thank you for being here. If this spoke to your soul, if it reminded you of your strength, your softness, your sanity, stay connected. Like the video, subscribe, not just for more words like these, but as a quiet promise to yourself. I will not go back to what broke me. You're not alone anymore, and you never were.